And 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another edition of A Humanistic Perspective. As always, I am one of your two hosts, Chad Castilla, and I'm joined with
Chris Gatos.
And today we have a very special guest, like we talked about on an episode a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, our last episode.
Yeah, our last episode. Chris actually met Reid while on a camping excursion.
Yes.
And today I have the fortunate privilege of introducing Reid. Reid, if you want to maybe introduce yourself, give us a slight little background, and then let's maybe go back to the start.
All right, sounds good. My name's Reid. I'm 44 years old, and recently divorced. I'm sure that'll come up in my history that we talk about. And I have two kids, wonderful little children, 3 and 4 years old, a boy and a girl. And they are my sun, my moon, and my stars. So just a lot happening within the last year and a lot happening over the last 44 years.
Sure, entirely. And what do you, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do professionally?
Well, right now I'm in between jobs. My last job title was manufacturing engineer, and the next job I just accepted an offer last week. Starting on June 14th, I'll be an automation engineer, working with a lot of industrial controls for electrical systems and probably some pneumatics as well, some compressed air.
Now, is your formal training in engineering or?
I going back quite a few years. I graduated in 2000 with my bachelor's in something called industrial technology management, and that was a blend of technical classes as well as management and business classes. The gear is more towards probably management, supervisory with a technical background. A lot of people that would graduate with that degree would oftentimes go into maybe an industrial engineer position on a technical side or manufacturing engineering. The degree itself is not heavy in math and physics like an actual engineering degree.
Got it.
Okay. But once you put a lot of time into your career in industry, you learn an awful lot on the job. So yes, on the job training, very much technical from an engineering side, but schooling, not quite an engineer. So
sure.
So yeah.
Where does the story for Reid begin? Where'd you grow up? What was that life like?
Well, I grew up in Hubertus, Wisconsin, and that is probably, I would consider it suburb/rural.
Okay.
Call it suburban, maybe.
Right. What major city is it? Are you near like Green Bay, Madison? Whereabouts?
I'm near Milwaukee.
Okay.
And Milwaukee blends into other cities. So there's Milwaukee, then there's heading north on Interstate 41. It's now Interstate 41. You'll pass through, you go through Milwaukee, then you'll go through Menominee Falls, then you'll go through Germantown. And after Germantown, it kind of gets a little more rural, but there's still subdivisions out there. So that's the area that I grew up in. A lot of farm fields, just small neighborhoods here and there.
And now, did you go to public school at the time or private school or?
All public. K through 12 was all public. And even my undergraduate was at a publicly funded college, UW Platteville.
What were you like as a kid? Did you have hobbies? Like, how did you know you wanted to do engineering when you were younger? Did you follow down that track? Like what I guess sort of was some interest or sort of sparked that path for you?
Sure. That's a good question. I always like to see how things work. I loved Legos. I liked putting them together.
Yes.
I like the structure of it, the step-by-step instructions, following those. As I grew up, I always wanted to find out how things worked. I watched MacGyver. I liked all the things he did. After I'd watched an episode of MacGyver, I'd go in my parents' basement in my dad's work area with his workbench, and I'd like set up little, something would tip over and then knock this over, and then it'd swing a pendulum and hit that. And, I like that kind of stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
So I do those kinds of things. I like to pick apart. I remember my dad had this old alarm clock, and I kind of broke it apart and was looking at everything inside. The transistors and the resistors, capacitors, all that stuff. I had no idea what any of that stuff did, but I was always interested in what it did and how it worked. I didn't really consider a technical field for my my career. I was very good in music. Played alto saxophone for many years.
Hey, I also played saxophone.
You did, yeah.
Oh yeah, nice. How long did you play?
I
You still
play
play?
Yeah, I still do play actually. I only play for myself now. Do not play in public, but I play tenor sax.
Mhm. Nice. That's a good instrument, man. It's got such a nice tone.
It really does.
That's so
Real
Lends
cool.
itself to
jazzy.
a lot of genres.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely,
That's how
definitely.
Chad and I met. We met in band. Yeah,
Yeah.
No
I played
kidding.
trumpet. Yeah.
Back in the
Nice.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I most of my very good friends right now are from high school, and I was in band with them at one time or another.
No
Cool.
kidding.
So yeah, it's it's such a wonderful way to get to know people, and play together, making music together. It's a group activity. It's a team effort. Yeah, so it's just I have a lot of great memories. Now, I was called band nerd quite a bit. That was a
I
thing
was
at our
gonna
high
ask,
school.
did you
Yeah.
have a big school? What were you in a crowd? Was it cliques like that? Was that a thing at your school?
Yeah, yeah, there were a lot of different cliques. You had your popular crowd, you had your guys that and girls that smoked and they partied a lot. Um, had the longer hair. Some were just in band. Some were very to themselves, not very outgoing. Yeah, just all kinds of different cliques. I went to a high school that I believe our graduating class was around 480 people. So it was, it wasn't huge, but it wasn't a tiny little, school either. There were
Sure.
a lot of feeder schools into it. Yeah, but
On that trip
anyways,
to or sorry, yeah, when
what's
Chris
that?
ran into you onto the trip, you were out there camping and you said you were actually on this excursion alone. Was that a part of your life when you were younger? Were you a Boy Scout or something? Did you go camping a lot with your parents or
I did camp with my parents quite a bit. They had, when I was born, I think they had a little pop-up camper. And I remember it was old, it was green, it was canvas, and it smelled kind of musty.
Yeah.
I know the thing
I
from all
think
the
they
rain building up in it and stuff.
yeah, they had bought it used. And then from there, they bought another pop-up that was, if it wasn't brand new, it was newer. It wasn't, it didn't smell musty or anything like that. It was a nice little pop-up. Um, then after some years with that, they sold that and bought a mini motorhome, a used mini motorhome, like
No
kind of looked like a
kidding.
Winnebago with a bed over the top of the cab.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I can picture that.
You had a bathroom, the toilet, the sink. We didn't use the shower at all. That was mostly storage.
Did you guys go all
Yeah,
over the US or
go
just
ahead.
did you go all over the US or did you guys stay local or
Mostly Wisconsin. We did take a trip to Tennessee at one point.
no?
That was a good trip. It was really cool. Went out to Valley Forge. Is it Valley Forge? No. La Forge? I can't think. I can't think of what it was. It was a town in Tennessee. Couple of them. One has become very touristy. I can't remember what it's called, but there's all kinds of. It's like the Wisconsin Dells, I guess.
Oh,
Sure.
But the other one was very rustic, and they had like a settlement set up there of what you might experience on a homestead, things like that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, mostly Wisconsin, mostly Wisconsin. Then my parents actually bought a bigger motorhome later on, like a full size. It looks like a small bus,
Nice.
and they still camp. All through this time, I like tent camping.
Sure.
yeah.
I did a lot of camping with friends on holiday weekends. I did take a trip to the Boundary Waters when I was in my 20s.
What led you there?
And what's that?
What led you there?
I just like camping a lot, and I liked fishing. And I had heard a story from one of my middle school teachers about going up there, and he really enjoyed it. And we had talked about it when I was a member of a church when I was younger. The youth group, we talked about going up to the Boundary Waters. That would have been a cool experience. And I had three other friends. One was pretty athletic. The other was sort of an alternative guy. He liked the woods. He liked to fish too. But those three smoked an awful lot of marijuana, and they wanted to go up, and experience nature. I did not smoke marijuana, and I wanted to go too. They were my friends, and I wanted to go up there too. I thought it'd be cool. So I think we went for like 5 days, 4 days, 4 nights and 5 days, or it was 5 nights and 6 days, something like that. That was a cool experience.
Wow.
So yeah,
What was the catching like? How was the fishing?
it was awful.
Really?
We didn't catch anything. We went late in the year. I think it was October, right at the end of the season.
Oh, sure.
Mm.
In fact, the outfitters weren't really sending anybody out after us, as far as like anybody, not after us like we were lost, but after they outfitted us and sent us off. They didn't have any more customers scheduled.
Holy cow.
Because, if winter hit, snowfall and everything, when people are out there camping in tents, that could get pretty ugly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't catch anything, but there were no bugs, which was fine with me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So let's go back towards schooling. So you're finishing high school. You're heading off to college next. You stayed local, right? You said
Yeah, I stayed in Wisconsin. I started at Stevens Point.
Okay.
And the reason I started talking about saxophone was I studied music. I was a music major, music education, for the first year.
Nice.
Yeah. So I enjoyed the saxophone. I played in a lot of different scenarios. I played in marching band and jazz band and in the main bands all through grade school, middle school, and high school. And, it seemed like a natural evolution for me, but it wasn't something I was super passionate about. By the end of the first semester, I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. So I switched to English education because I liked writing, I liked reading and research, and so I tried that for a year and a half. I still wasn't down with that. What led me to the technical side of things was I was working at a plastic injection molding company from the summer after my senior year of high school up until I ultimately made this decision. And I told my parents I just wasn't interested in English or anything like that. And they said, well, what are you interested in? I said, I really like what's going on around me. I was just a machine operator. But I liked everything that was going on around me. And they mentioned the lady that owned the company. She was very heavily involved with University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And they had a program there for plastics technology. So I got interested, took a tour, and I was sold.
Wow.
I transferred from Stevens Point to Platteville. Took me 3 more years to graduate.
What year is this? What year did you?
The year that I transferred, I graduated in 95 from high school. I transferred for the fall of 97. That's when I started Platteville, and I graduated in May of 2000.
Nice.
Yeah.
So did you stay in plastic molding when you got there, or?
Yeah, when I went to Platteville, I did the plastics processing technologies with the industrial technology major, and I did 2 internships at this plastics company. My first senior year and my second senior year, because it was the 5-year plan for me.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, and they offered me a job, so I took it at that same place, and I worked there for 6 years as a manufacturing engineer, and I got a lot of experience in different things.
What's your personal relationship with plastics? What would you say is unique about them? What would you say you hate about them? I feel like you've probably had a pretty intimate relationship with plastics.
Yeah, they're really cool. You can form them in almost any way you want. There are some constraints, not so much with 3D printing, but there are limitations to that as well. Strength, the quality of getting the plastic all formed together. And cured together. But with the molding, really the sky's the limit. There's a lot of complex geometries you can do, and you can just make it up. And it's really just, the tool gets built and you're just filling it with plastic, and all pops apart when it cools down for the thermoplastics. For the thermal sets, which is another kind of polymer, that's more of a reaction, a chemical reaction, where you have a catalyst and what do you call it? A base resin. And the catalyst initiates a reaction that causes molecularization of the polymer to actually have one continuous molecule, because it's all linked together on a an atomic structure, basically. And that's a lot stronger. That's what those early ashtrays were made out of, bakelite. It has a much higher degradation, decomposition temperature point, and there are limitations to that too. What I don't like about plastics is how much waste there is. There is just so much waste
in the process of creating something.
Well, in the process of creating it, and also the output into the consumer and business and industrial market. There's a lot of waste from that. People don't do a very good job all over the world of containing it and recycling it, and yeah, it's everywhere in the ocean, and landfills, on the sides of roads,
Yeah, the Pacific Patch
people's
in the
yards.
ocean.
It's just, yeah, that's pretty scary stuff, especially when it starts showing up in organisms on a very
Sure.
small level, and when larger organisms, basically live off those smaller organisms. You get this concentration that builds up into the bigger predators of the ocean, and even on land, of this concentration of plastic and other wastes.
Could you
It's
talk
not good.
to
But anyways,
could you talk to the process that occurs with microplastics when the sun hits it and they break down? Like what is occurring and why does that happen?
I can't explain it on a chemical molecular level, but the UV rays really break plastics down, and just basic weathering. Some plastics will have what's called a plasticizer, which makes them very flexible, like vinyl. Like vinyl shoes have a plasticizer in them. That's polyvinyl chloride. And like PVC pipes are very rigid, but when you add a plasticizer to them, they're very flexible. Over time, plasticizers will migrate out, permeate out of it, and basically either evaporate or go wherever they go. And then the plastic becomes very brittle, and it starts to kind of break down over time if it doesn't have something to stabilize it. So that could be happening. Also, the UV rays will break down the bonds of the plastic. And that just, you've seen plastic that's weathered, and it's got that brittle feeling to it.
Yep.
That's from a high viewpoint, that's basically what's happening to a lot of it. And just, if it's in the ocean, it's banging around and things, rubbing against each other, that wears it down too.
Sure. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned briefly 3D printing machines and this type of technology. So when you get out of college in the 2000s, what are you working with machine wise? And could you maybe talk to where that has gone now with even consumers having the ability to have a 3D printer in our own home? Do you think our technology is way more advanced? Is it stuff you've been seeing since the early 2000s? Where do you sort of see that at?
Well, coming out of college, I don't know if there was 3D printing. If it was in its infancy. It was probably more research and development, I think. I don't remember talking about a lot in my classes. But I do believe there are some companies doing it. One of the big names that I remember was Protomold. They were a prototyping company, and they could do 3D printing. It was very, very basic, I think. It wasn't for anything structurally and have any real structural integrity to it. It was more just a prototype thing, so you get a feel of it, look at it, see where there might be any issues, maybe do a little bit of testing for maybe form, how things look together or made together a little bit. But most of what I saw was tool and die tooling, based off of CAD models, CAD drawings, and then the tool would be built. And we were a custom injection molding house where we had, I think, maybe 16 injection molding machines, giant presses. Some were small, some were very big, as big as a bus. Some were smaller than a.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
Probably a little bit bigger than like a motorcycle size, like a nice, Harley Davidson motorcycle, dresser bike. But we had a lot of different molds to mold a lot of different parts. There were a lot of changeovers. We'd run maybe a small number of parts for one customer, pull that tool out, clean the plastic out of the machine, load a different plastic into it, put a different tool into the press, and then mold a different part. We did that a lot. So that was mostly what I saw as far as molding plastics. Now there's other processes, thermoforming, pressure molding, things like that, extrusion. But most of my experience was in injection molding. Moving onward through time, I mean, different materials, different engineered resins. There's your, what are they called now? There's engineered resins, and then the name slips my mind right now. But the lower cost plastics, the general materials, like what your milk jugs are made out of, that kind of stuff. Going into the more engineered materials, chemists coming up with better properties for certain applications. That was exciting, seeing a lot of that come out.
Could you talk more detail about that period of time?
Well, when I was in school, they were looking at impregnating plastic with wood filler, and making like deck boards out of it. And that was exciting, because you see that now. People's decks are made out of plastic, and it's actually got some wood in it, sort of give it that texture and feel. They were talking about growing plastics in potatoes, things like that. That was very exciting. A lot of the, being able to recycle things. What's interesting, you hear about styrofoam. Nobody recycles it. It can't be recycled. Everybody throws it out. It can be recycled. It's just not economical. It costs a lot to recycle it. That's why they throw it away. It doesn't make sense to recycle it, I believe.
Just the processes.
So I believe that's the case. Well, it's foamed, and I believe it's polystyrene, which you can recycle. But the fact that they put a foaming agent in it, I believe that's the part that makes it very difficult to recycle it. So, how it's insulating, it's sort of puffy, for lack of a better term. You can compress it, and it goes back to shape. Those little air pockets in it that allow it for insulation properties. Anyways, just off the wall things like that were very exciting.
Did you ever make any projects for yourself? Because you said you were doing custom molding injection there.
Yeah, the custom part about it was, why is it called custom injection molding? That's a really good question. Yeah, I didn't do any tooling. To build a small tool for something, I mean, it could be $10,000. Some tools cost $500,000, depending upon the complexity and what they're doing and the equipment they're running in. So that was nothing I did. I did a lot of projects at home, just off the wall stuff. I like to tinker, not necessarily with plastics, different materials. I got into like hobby control boards, microcontrollers, stuff like that.
What do you do with your
just things like that? I like to tinker, but I program. Here's a funny story. There's a lady that I work with, and she was a part of this fundraiser, and they had different tables, and their tables had to have a movie theme, and they chose the Titanic. And she had a big, large model, wood model of Titanic, of a ship that looked like a Titanic. And she asked me what I could do with it. So I took the ship, and if the ship's sitting like this, I put a little rod through two eyelets and two little wooden posts, and I slid it through there, and I put the ship on it, but I put it off center so it leaned one way. And then I put a motor underneath the end that was leaning down, and I drilled a shaft to put on that motor that had an offset center. So as it turned, it kind of had this motion. And as it turned, it was kind of a roller. It would make the ship do this, like it looked like it was floating on the ocean. Wow. And I went so far as to purchase a little soundboard. You could put, I think it was an SD RAM card in there that had a certain file type loaded on it. And I used a little controller to output just discrete on and off signals that would tell this board what song to play. And I had downloaded sound bites from the movie Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
So I think one of them was "I'm King of the World," and I downloaded some boat sounds, honk honk, the horn on the boat, some seagulls in the background. So I would have this boat waving like this and this music playing, based off these timers in this controller. I also put some blue and white blended fabric around it to look like water. So that was her prop for her table. And I don't know if they won the best one, but one of the ladies there liked it so much, she just wanted the ship. She didn't want all the noise with it, but I set it up so there was a timer so the motor would turn on every once in a while and rock the boat.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah. So just stuff like that, just little hobby projects, having fun with it.
So do you if something breaks around the house, do you try and come up with a unique solution to solve it? Or are you like, I'll go the standard route?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. I have to be careful that I don't try to do too much because I've got too many things going on, too many balls in the air.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you guys, I am a little lazy sometimes. So if it's a lot of work, I'll just pay somebody to do it. if it's something so custom like that, that's just not something people do, I'll find somebody, or I'll do it myself if I have a little idea like that. But yeah, I mean, if it's fixing the house, or fixing a window, or whatever, I'd rather pay somebody who knows what they're doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That makes sense.
So where does your path take you after the molding company and working with that plastic company?
Well, I really enjoyed controls work, electrical controls. I'd kind of gotten into what's called programmable logic controllers, PLCs, and those are basically the brains of machinery.
Okay.
You wire sensors into it, you have signals coming into it, and you have signals coming out of it, turning valves on and off, turning motors on and off, indicator lights on and off, that kind of stuff. So you're plugging these inputs in, and then you've got the outputs, and you're creating the logic that you want everything to happen in, say, a sequence in software, and more of a it's called ladder logic. And then you create your program in there based on how you want everything to work on the machine, and then you download it into the controller. And I really thought that was cool. I think it's cool. Mechanical design is awesome, but not to sound like I have a God complex, but I like breathing life into the machine. I like bringing it alive and making it do the things that people want it to do. So I really like that stuff, and I just didn't have enough of that in my job, plastics company. So I moved on to another company that was looking for an application equipment engineer, and they're an adhesives company, and so I worked there for 9 years, I think, and I designed various adhesives application equipment. And they moved me into a design engineering role. I did mostly industrial design the first several years, and then they moved me into more of a design engineer where I worked on the consumer products lines as well, with molded plastic applicators, in fact.
What are some of the products that you were working on specifically?
Well, one of them, which turned out not to work so very well. It involved some real basic components. The product, can I talk about brand names on here? Is that okay?
Yeah. You could cuss, you could do whatever you want. It's totally fine.
Okay. Well, they're called glue dots. And I don't know if you're familiar with those. It's the pressure sensitive adhesive. It's rubber based, so it's real flexible. It's like the booger glue.
It's like what the teachers use. The teachers use to hang up little posters at school.
Yes, very similar to that. It's like the booger glue you get in a magazine where you pull something out, it's stuck together, and it's real stretchy.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, they would preform that on a release liner, like a silicone coated paper, so it just peels off, and it's a little dot, like a little circle. And so I was working on developing industrial application equipment for that, fully automated, where a product would come by, it would come down and stick a glue dot to it, and then the product would keep going.
What was the biggest challenge of that project?
Probably working with my manager. He had a very challenging personality. A brilliant guy, very smart, but he knew it, and he was kind of hard to work with sometimes. But he had patience with me because I was new at this kind of stuff, and he did teach me an awful lot, which I appreciate. But yeah, he had a design sort of already when I got there, and we were kind of testing it, but I branched off into something else for a little bit, my own ideas, and we did sell some of those machines, but they didn't work as well. So I went back to his design and tweaked it, a little bit, a fair amount, and came up with this other applicator. And that did pretty well. They're still selling them, I believe. I did a lot of traveling for that job, all over the place. It was a lot.
Where were you going?
So much that I didn't want to really travel too much. Oh, all over the United States. I went to Scotland to train a counterpart over there. Yeah, that was a good trip. That was a cool trip. A little lonely because I was by myself, but but my host over there made it more comfortable. Yeah, it just I was in California, I was in Boston, I was in Florida, in the Carolinas, Minnesota. There's my Uber accent, Minnesota.
I heard that.
Just all over the country. Washington. I was out in Washington.
I wonder, what are some skill sets or characteristics that, like, as an engineer or as a problem solver, when you're trying to create these products, they're the most efficient possible, what's keeping you going? What's guiding you? Some like Like, is there like a code principles of ethics for engineers so you don't get too stressed or too upset at it, and you can do it functionally to make sure that you're coming out with the outcomes you need?
I think the stress, that's a personal thing. Everybody's different. Everybody deals with their stress differently. That's a really good question. It's not really an engineering thing. It's a personal behavior that you've developed over time. Whether or not certain behaviors can lead to engineering, I think my curiosity, that's a really good thing to have when you're going to be an engineer. Logic, basic logic and deducing things, being a good scientist, observing things, recording things as they are. That's probably a good attribute to have. Yeah, just a real strong curiosity, in understanding how things work. You can't really fix things if you don't understand how they work or how they're supposed to work from the get-go. To be, a strong engineer, you do need the math and the physics. You need to have an interest in that. You need to enjoy doing that kind of stuff and a really strong understanding of it. Strong physics background, those kinds of things. So those are some of the, the core, I don't know, attributes, I would call them.
Yeah.
To be somebody who's a good problem solver, and it's neat. I really enjoy diversity in what I'm doing. In all my jobs, I've really had a lot of different things in each job that I was responsible for. So, that I enjoy. I don't like monotonous.
Yeah.
I like doing something, finishing it, and moving on to something else. Not doing something and maintaining it for the rest of my career. I
Right.
do something, fix something, develop something, and release it and let other people become independent with it, not be solely dependent upon me, and then move on to something else.
How
That makes sense? Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, that makes so much sense, especially when you bring up that curiosity point. If you're a curious person, there's no way you're going to be complacent in what you're doing.
And just do one thing.
No, probably in any field. Yeah.
Truly. So how many years were you with them? You were traveling all over the US and doing that. This sounds like it was a hefty amount of time.
Yeah, I was burning out. That's when they offered me the design engineer position. Probably after about 6 years, I think, 5 years in that position. When they brought me into the design engineer position, I did less travel. In fact, we hired somebody as a direct report to me. He was an application equipment technician, and he was supposed to be doing more of the travel. We had new management come in, and they didn't want me on the road at all, which was a godsend.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, because I was really getting stressed. So I stopped traveling as much. And that's when I took on some of the consumer designs, we'll call them, just little plastic applicators and such, new products. As part of a new product development team, I tested a lot of different adhesives with different properties, that kind of thing. So
How does that testing
I did
process
that for a
work?
while. Well, I kind of had to make up my own tests. There's some industry standard tests, ASTM, American Society of Test Methods, that are out there for testing adhesives. There were some new products that were coming out with it. We weren't really aware of any. There were some tests for it, but we conducted our own tests to do a comparison to other products that were like that. Some products that we were coming out with too. I can't really get into the details of it.
Sure.
I signed non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements with companies. Just about every place I've worked since the plastics place, I've had to sign something like that. But it was cool stuff. It was new to us. It was exciting. So yeah, you have to come up with a baseline, and you have to come up with something that's repeatable that you can test. Repeatability is important. Consistency, and once you have that, you kind of create a baseline, and then you kind of measure from that. Here's our product, and this is what it can do. What can other people's do when I compare it to what our product's doing? Some of it was very subjective. It was difficult. And some people, took it for what it was worth, and that's a subjective test, but sometimes that's all you've got. So it was very interesting in how we tested things, how we developed things there. But it was very cool. Very cool stuff.
So you're getting burnt out, or you've transitioned now into this more executive role that you're in a more settled down situation. Were you ready to move on to a new company, or what sort of where did you go next, and what guided you there?
The transition to the new management there ended up being, it was a very, it became siloed, I think, the structure, the interaction between the employees became much more competitive from departments, interdepartment competition. I wasn't used to that. I didn't like that. So I left.
Sure.
I went to a company that was actually building equipment for us. I had a history with them since I worked at the plastics place right after college. I went to work there. I did some controls work for them, controls design, controls engineering, with the controllers and designing wiring schematics, panel layouts. Those boxes that have the door on them. You open them up, and there's all kinds of wires and gadgets in there, devices. Yeah. That was the kind of stuff I was designing. And then I'd pass off the prints to manufacturing part of the company, and they would build, wire, that kind of stuff. I like that because it's very detailed, very specific, very structured. You can tell there's a pattern here with me.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I've enjoyed my career so much. So yeah, I did that for a little while. Then I moved on to a company that makes robotic welding cells for the automotive industry. Where you see these movies online of these robots coming in and sparks flying from the weld process.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. It was very cool stuff. I didn't program the robots, but I programmed everything else in the cell. Any sort of fixturing that had motion to it, or systems that would pick up a part and place it somewhere else that wasn't a robot. I do a lot of machines that had weld controllers on it, where I would control when the weld would happen, things like that.
So are you programming? Are you programming
Yeah.
for this role too? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm programming as well. So we would get a project. We'd look at what the sales manager had laid out with the customer. Customer gave them their criteria. Sometimes they give us a set of standards I had to work by. It was a project-based business. Everything was different. Every machine was custom. So that I'd get all these inputs from various departments and customers, and I would put together more of a bill of materials. They kind of had a basic one, what kind of controller, what kind of different interfaces it would have with other equipment. So we'd buy that, and then I would basically come up with how everything was going to be laid out in the panel, what we're going to wire to what, how those wires would be identified. Order the rest of that. By the time the drawing was done and everything was ordered, the things that we ordered first were already coming in. So then they'd start assembling the panels in the panel shop. Then once everything's starting to come in, they're working on other projects at the same time too, waiting for things to come in. Then I would begin the program. And the programs were ranged from small to absolutely gigantic.
Sure.
The drawings would be a couple pages. I did one drawing for a work cell, a robotic welding cell that had, I think, 100 pages of the 11.5 by 17 pages. So yeah, very involved. So I would work up the program based upon what the customer wanted. If there was a touch screen associated with it, I would develop the touch screen, how things would be presented, how it would alert operators to what's going on, any alarms on the machine, how to clear them, how to start the machine, how to stop the machine.
Wow.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts.
Was there AI being incorporated at this point in time, or is this something that you're starting to
No.
see more now?
I don't see AI.
None. There's no AI integration into any of your workflows or workspaces?
Nothing like that. No, these are all,
Wow.
there might be now in some companies. The industrial equipment, it's different.
Okay.
It's different. It's got a different sort of controller to it than you might have a very processing heavy computer with it. Not that industrial controllers aren't process heavy. I should be careful how I lay this out, because there's a lot of hybrids out there now. Some are PC based. Most are not PC based. So the ones that are highly PC based can have probably more AI in them than just a programmable logic controller is very robust. It's industrial. It takes vibration. It sees a lot of dirt. It can just a lot of
wear and tear.
abuse, wear and tear. Yes,
Yeah.
it's doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, repeatedly for
Yeah.
it could be years. So it's different. You also have a technical force that is maintaining this, and the technical force can range from straight out of high school to somebody who's got 30 years of experience. So troubleshooting these systems needs to be done at a level that somebody right out of high school would have to understand, with the right training and things. So having AI in there in an industrial process might be challenging. I'm sure there are applications, but I have not used it.
Okay.
And I probably never will in what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's so
I wish I
fascinating.
could speak more to it.
No. That's
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by having people on and seeing it hasn't met their space yet. Will it ever meet their space?
Yeah.
So what I
Mhm.
wanted to ask, could you, with your skill set and background, could you build a gun for yourself? Could you build a table for yourself? Could you branch out just because you're like can an engineer just be well-rounded in the idea of problem solving and creating that they can branch outside of what their specialty is?
I think that has to do with the curiosity,
Okay.
and never being satisfied with always thinking you could do something better, always being curious in how everything works and what it is that makes it work. Yeah, I'm constantly learning. True believer in lifelong learning. It's not you leave school and you're done learning. You're learning every day. So I'm always interested in learning more. So I mean, I've branched out in different things. I didn't study electronics in college. I didn't study programming in electrical design. That's something I had a great interest in and had the opportunity to do that. A lot of what I've learned, I've just read. I have some PLCs in my basement that I've used. I've built small systems to show it to prospective employers who then hired me because I went above and beyond and showed them what my capabilities were. That's passion.
Oh
you know?
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. I think I think engineers have that interest and level of curiosity to just try different things and experiment.
Did you see a natural trajectory in your career and workflow that made each project harder at the places you went, or was it sort of like up and down? Like maybe while I was working at this company it was really hard, while I was working at this company it was really easy. Like, was that natural, or did it follow sort of an increased trajectory?
It increases, you part of it is salary.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a good paying job if you're just doing simple things. Because a lot of people can do simple things. And the more you can do, the more value you add. The more breadth of your education and your experiences, the more you can add to a company. So yeah, and I don't think there are many people that are in a technical field like engineering who just sit there and say, yeah, this is good enough.
Right.
You want to be challenged. Otherwise it gets boring. So yeah, I think people who are in a field like that are constantly trying to do better, trying to make a better mousetrap, trying to just push the limits of things. I mean that's how new ideas come to fruition and create new products.
Sure.
Yeah.
When did you sort of, as a man, realize maybe I want to have a family or I want to go down this route? And were you worried about your career? Was financials a part of it? How was that sort of mental process for you?
Well, for a while I didn't think I'd have a family or any kids. I was convinced I wouldn't. I didn't meet my now ex-wife. I didn't meet her till I was 35. I think I was 35. Yeah, I think so. But my friends and I, none of them were married for a long time or even had kids. We really enjoyed taking trips together. We liked going out together. We were a pretty tight-knit group. So yeah, none of us were really running off and getting married right out of college or anything. We like to party, we like to, have a good time, and we like having our disposable income
Truly.
to do the things that we like to do. Ski trips out west, cruises, all that kind of stuff. Just living life.
Yeah, the experience.
And then some of the group of friends started getting married, and some started having kids once they were married. I like the idea. But I just never met anybody that I really wanted to be with like that. When I met my ex-wife, we hit it off very well. We flirted on Facebook, and
very nice.
Yeah, we were. I think we were talking on the phone, and I asked her out, and the rest is history, as they say.
Were you worried about being able to provide for a family or anything like that? Or was your career really stable? Were you confident and comfortable where you were at?
My career was stable. I was confident and comfortable where I was at. Her career was and is stable. She's a nurse, and she's a good nurse. So, she and I felt very comfortable in our careers that we could handle a family, that we could afford a family, afford daycare. That's such a huge cost. I'm not even going to get into that.
I can't even imagine.
Dude, it's a lot of money, especially when they're babies. They require so much care. You need more people. You can have I think 4 babies per person, maybe even 2 or 3 in Wisconsin. Maybe that's a federal mandate. I don't know. Once they get older, there can be more students, more kids per adult. And then the cost goes down a little bit. They don't require as much attention and watching. They're a little more independent. So the costs have kind of gone down. But anyways, yeah, I felt confident in that. I love my wife, and she wanted kids. I wanted kids. So we ended up having 2. She wanted a third. I did not want a third, and not to get into personal details, but that was an issue between us. But yeah.
Do you like having kids? What is positives, negatives? What has it been a wild experience? Has that even been more challenging than even some of your problem solving and engineering work life?
Parenting is the most difficult thing I've ever done, but it's also the best thing I've ever done. It's the most challenging and the most rewarding. I love my children dearly. I do anything for them. My wife, my ex-wife, and I, we really try to raise them to be responsible, and caring and friendly and kind and, good, well-rounded kids.
Do you notice similarities in yourself in them living day to day? Does it ever bring you flashbacks to yourself or anything?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they do things. They're curious, just like I was. They love camping. I love camping. They say really cute things. I think my daughter at one point called a snail a turtle bug. I mean, what a perfect way to describe a snail with a shell.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it was really cute. Yeah, it's fun to watch them grow. My ex-wife, she loves them when they're little, and she wants them to stay little. As a parent, before I even had kids, I knew I would enjoy more watching them grow up, learn, and interact with things. I loved them when they were babies and they were snuggly and things like that, and diaper changes and all that good stuff.
Do you see any of them becoming engineers?
My daughter could very well. She is very detailed. She's very organized. She asks a lot of questions about how things work. She likes building things, and she's very imaginative. I could definitely see her doing that. My son, not so much. He's, they're just totally different. I do see myself in them. There's arguments in, child development. Is it genetics? Is it learned? That kind of stuff. There are a lot of genetics to it, but they really emulate what you do and what you say.
Oh yeah.
I'll say something to my son that I'll later hear my daughter say to him. And some of it's eye-opening, like, holy crap, that sounds really awful what I said. It's a learning experience.
Sure.
And some of it's really cute, hearing her say that to him. But yeah,
Wow.
it's a trip, man. It's a trip.
It's interesting too, because we're at we're young men. We're at such a different point in time. But I do think about this. I'm like, oh, what would that be like? What would that future be like? And so it's always interesting to hear from other men in the world, their perspective on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, my kids, they're 14 months apart.
Okay.
And that's.
Would you recommend having them that close, or would you have split it up more? Do you think, or
if I could have the same two kids, I probably would split it up. But if I think that splitting them up, they'd be completely different people.
Right.
Because
that's true.
My son would not be my son; he'd be somebody else.
Yeah.
Just based upon how fertilization happens and the different whatever. Anyways, yeah. So it was challenging. It still is. Both of them toddlers. Both of them being in their terrible stages at the same time. It is rough.
Yeah.
It is rough.
Some sleepless nights and stuff, I'm sure.
Well, when they were babies, yes, but just, these emotional outbursts, uncontrolled, not knowing how to handle their emotions yet, it's just, out of left field sometimes. They'll just be screaming at nothing out of nowhere. So it's
fascinating.
Being a single parent now. What's that?
It's fascinating to see the young brain try and cope with everything it's feeling hormonally and just around the world, like taking in all the senses for the first time ever.
Yeah, it's fun and it's horrific. I used to joke to people that they were little emotional terrorists. They 1 minute they're happy and giggling, and the next minute they're screaming at you because they don't have the right color bowl in front of them. It's yeah.
So you said you're about to transition, right, into a new job, actually. And are you going to be doing similar work there, working with boards and the engineering side of things? Are you moving into more administrative side of things? What's next for you?
I like the hands-on. I love the controls. I hate the travel, and that's hard to find now because a lot of jobs are building custom equipment with these types of controllers that are programmable. You're building different equipment all the time, and finding a company that you could stay at locally and build all kinds of different custom equipment is very difficult because most of it's getting built and then shipped off to a customer site, and you're there doing the startup, the debug of everything, and that can be a very lengthy process. That's why I left one of my jobs, because we started a family and there's just too much travel. I worked 19 days straight one time, and that was a long time. Probably 80% of that was on the road. So
wow.
Finding the job that I found, I'm very grateful for. There's little to no travel. It's a lot of controls work. It's all machinery that they own and is in-house. A lot of really troubleshooting, but that's fine. I enjoy troubleshooting too. So yeah, it's the technology that I love working with and that I'm passionate about, but no travel. So it's kind of I'm guessing it's going to be a good thing.
Sure.
Very good thing.
I'm curious. I want to ask this question. I don't know how much you've been keeping up. The Pentagon has been releasing a lot of footage and interactions with UFOs and other unidentified objects and vehicles. From a logical engineer perspective, what is your thoughts on extraterrestrial life and the opportunity for there to be more than just us inside this entire galaxy and solar system in which we operate in?
That's a really good question. I used to be very religious, and I'm not anymore. And I think a lot about space and what goes on in it, and we're this planet here floating around, and what happened here is very special. But I don't think it's highly improbable with how large the universe is. When you look at, what scientists think the number of different stars are, just the number of galaxies, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And the basic elements that life is made up of, carbon, water, these basic things that come out of stars. Life is formed at the center of a star. These elements, they're being fused together. And out of stardust is, everything you see around you right now, energy basically compressed together. So, it happens all over the place. And is what happened here special? Yes, but I believe that it's highly feasible that can happen all over the place.
Mm.
You've got this perfect set, and it doesn't have to be, oxygen and water, H2O, and all this other stuff. It could be based on other things,
Entirely.
Is light alive anywhere? That kind of thing. You look at the ocean and what things look like in there, and it's such a mind-blowing scape down there. It's the diversity of it in surviving things like that. I mean, you could have a planet that's, I don't know, 100% methane and pools of methane, and maybe life develops in there. What does it look like? Maybe there's animals swimming in the air. I don't know. So I like to use my imagination with that, and I do believe very strongly that there are other life forms out there. What they look like and what they are,
right. That's still unknown potentially.
Yeah, that's the question.
Right.
I hear a lot of people say, well, intelligent life would look like us and blah, blah, blah. And they'd have two hands and a head. And maybe not,
Right. Yeah, you never know. What if it's like an intelligent fungi that developed and has its own consciousness?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, what if it's something that just blows around in the wind?
Sure.
It's just, yeah, I think the
It's almost as if
possibilities are, go ahead.
Oh, it's almost as if it's like naive to think you are the only thing with how wondrous science is and the ability to discover.
Yeah, I think thinking that we're the only thing here is very anthropocentric. It's a very man-centered, human-centered thought. I think it's not very open-minded.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I think it's, I don't want to say closed-minded or small-minded, but I just, I really feel strongly that, with science and what we know and what's out there, what we observe, you've got we're constantly discovering new planets. We're looking for the Goldilocks zone, that zone away from a star that would have, water in the form of gas in the form of water on a planet, things like that. We're discovering things like that every day. I mean, there's a reason we have these giant radio telescopes pointed up at the sky,
Right.
trying to look, like SETI, that organization. So I really think there is something out there.
What is your perspective on the transition and cultural adaptation of technology? And what is your thoughts on technology in its current state? Do you think it's a healthy thing for people and for consumers, mostly talking in the definitive world of social media and that type of technologies? How is that relationship for you?
It's funny you asked that. I'm not on Facebook anymore.
No.
I was on it for quite a while, a lot, and it's consuming. I want to be more present with my kids. I want to pay attention to them. I want to be with them. I want to experience them. Was interfering with that. I have a little bit of an obsessive personality, so it was not healthy for me. I've seen some documentaries about social media and what it does and how the algorithms focus on things, and it's scary. It's very scary. It's manipulative. They know what you're going to do before you even do it. And
Yeah.
it's not good. It's not healthy. There are good things when you're looking at somebody and with them and experiencing them and talking to them and just being with them. It's the natural way things have been for millions of years.
Truly.
Sitting there and staring at a phone all day long, or your computer, your tablet, or whatever you're using, you're basically turning yourself off to what's going on around you. I've been practicing mindfulness. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yes, I do a lot of studying of meditation and other practices.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, I've been doing myself Munditi, which is a study on the contemplation of joy and happiness and positivity for both others, people you like, people you don't like yourself. But yeah, I would be very curious to hear how mindfulness has been present in your life and how you're adapting practices of it for you.
Well, I think social media is the anti-mindfulness.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
It really is. You're disconnected from what's going on around you. You're not experiencing the air temperature or the sounds that are around you or just life. You're not living in those moments. You're basically distracted from them. So yeah, I think disconnecting from that, social media, Facebook, I'm not on anything else. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really use it very much.
Sure.
But yeah, just getting away from that and practicing the mindfulness, I feel more peace. I'm practicing, I'm being kind to others. I'm trying to realize what I have and be more, have more gratitude towards it, feeling fortunate. Opening my eyes up, I also realize I'm privileged and those kinds of things, really taking a hard look at myself. So I guess we're a little off the social media track, but I think social media has its place, but I think it is overused. I think it is used solely for marketing now.
Yeah.
And I think disinformation is a real problem with it right now. It's something new. This is something new in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of uncharted territory. Technology changes so rapidly that, regulations and laws can't keep up with it. It really opens up questions about liberty and freedoms,
Truly.
which is liberty. But, it's, yeah, I have great concerns about it in the future.
How do you handle technology and your children and parenting? What is sort of your principle and ideology in that?
I don't ever show my kids my phone. They can look at pictures once in a great while.
Sure.
They don't have access to a computer, a phone, or a tablet. And they watch TV. They do. It's kind of a nice babysitter once in a while.
Sure.
And my ex-wife and I, we've always been on the same page about things. And one of them is what they watch. It needs to have some aspect of education. What are they learning? Well, they can rattle off dinosaurs' names, Diplodocus, all kinds of different, Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, my son's favorite animal is a T-Rex. Yes, it's great. They watch a show called Blippi. And on Blippi, they talk. Have you heard of Blippi?
No, but I love the name.
Yeah, it's this guy. He's dressed in this, very colorful outfit with suspenders and a colorful cap. And he talks like he's talking to, 3 or 4-year-olds. But he talks about, excavators, dump trucks, front end loaders, stuff like that, tractors, and the kids eat it up. That's the kind of stuff I'm okay with them watching.
Sure.
I think they get about an hour and a half in the morning of watching TV when they're home. And they get to watch a little bit after nap. And then, they're done watching it by dinner. No TV after dinner, no TV before breakfast.
That's great. Limiting that blue light in the afternoon and evenings is super.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, the blue light, that's one of them. It gets them all revved up.
Entirely.
But,
I'm myself with tons of insomnia just from going to a college and having technology and not having someone to tell you have to turn it off at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. It's kind of a learning curve there.
Entirely.
But I'm very protective of my kids with things like that. I've read the articles, the studies, not the studies themselves, but people who discuss the studies of what they find with too much input from electronics.
Truly.
And that sort of thing. And my ex-wife and I really believe in them learning things by playing, being outside in nature, doing things. They like to camp. They want to hunt with me someday. They want to go fishing. They want to go skiing, downhill skiing with me someday. They want to do all that stuff.
Nice.
They play out in the front yard. There's it's not a flower bed. It's got some bushes in it, and it's separated off from the grass. There's little stones in it.
Sure.
And they play in it. They pick it up, they shovel it. My daughter finds these little quartz rocks in there, and she calls them crystals or jewels or something like that. They use a lot of their imagination. We don't tell them how to play. We let them play and use their imagination. There's no structured play.
I like that.
They do that at school. They got structured projects, craft projects, and learning letters and things like that. That's great for school. But yeah, at home and having fun, they get to do how they please with playing.
I wanted to go into more of the outdoorsman-y world. Now that you're an older gentleman, I think for us, right, in our current age and current state, not saying that you're an old man or anything, not trying to go there, but
I'm getting up there.
Sure, I am too. I can't wait. The day I start graying is the day I am stoked. I can't wait. I think I'm gonna look good with a gray beard and everything. It will be a thing.
Yeah.
But with hunting and being outdoors, how has that relationship sort of changed as you age and become more mature in your thought process and how you're processing the world?
When I was younger, it was cool to hunt. I liked guns, and I don't think I really grasped the relationship that I had with nature and the natural world. As I grow older and I see and I experience and I see how things are interrelated in the real cycle of life, I process it differently. I consume it differently. You're growing up with the law, just discussing the laws. Well, you don't want us to do this stuff. They're buzzkill, blah, 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 rain on my parade. My brother calls me the warden. There's a little joke between us. I'm very strict when I'm out in the woods hunting.
Sure.
Not because this is the rule, we have to follow it, but because the rules are there for a reason. Yeah. They're there to ensure that, what we have in nature will be there later on for other generations and other people to enjoy. If everybody went out there and could shoot a deer, there'd be no deer left. There'd be nothing left.
Right.
So, in realizing that, not just you have to follow the law, but the reason that it's there, I use that too. That's why my brother calls me the warden.
It's a great nickname.
Funny story about that. We were out shooting on public land one time, just target shooting, and up drives a ranger, and he gets out, and we're like, "Oh, this is okay, right?" And he said, "Oh yeah, be safe, pick up all your targets and your shells and everything." It's really cool. And my brother tells him, I literally call my brother Warden Reid. And the guy laughs a bit. He's like, "Hold on." He goes in his truck and he comes out with this little ranger pin, DNR pin, and gives it to me, for me to use. Yeah, like a little pin that you put on your lapel of your suit or whatever, with a little backer to it. Yeah. Warden Reid.
That's sick. Do you still have it now?
God, I think I do. I don't know where it is. I'd have to look around. But yeah. So interacting with nature now is I have more appreciation for it.
Truly.
Hunting used to be like, I gotta get this, we're not bringing anything home, if we don't get anything, fishing, I'm frustrated, we're not getting anything. Now it's like, I don't really give a shit. I just want to be out there. I just want to experience it. I want to smell the smells. I want to see, I want to feel the rain. I don't mind being out in rain. As long as I have rain gear on, I'm not freezing or severely.
You could perform an Alaska hunt, no problem then.
Me? No, I'm way out of shape.
Okay. All right. I get that.
Way out of shape.
Yeah. Tons of tracking, tons of
just mountainous terrain, hiking. That's the bush.
Yeah.
Up there. So
do you have any dream hikes yourself, or dream hunts? Sorry, not hikes.
Yeah, I would love to go to the Dakotas and do some coyote hunting.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
My brother and I have tried coyote hunting, but we've never got anything. The coyote in Wisconsin, they're very weary of people, and they really are only out at night. And that could be set up.
Sorry about that. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, that's all right.
Okay. Oh man, that was so bad. Our Wi-Fi went out.
That's right.
Our main Wi-Fi cut out.
I was going to ask you if you guys paid your internet bill this month.
Yeah, well,
yeah, we're at the office. Apparently, all week though, there's been issues.
Yeah.
Whatever. It happens. It's technology.
Right. So we were leaving off with the was it South Dakota for the coyote hunt?
Yes. Yeah, no, I would really enjoy doing that, I think. And my brother would too. And maybe we can do it someday now. I don't know. We'll see.
That sounds brilliant. So do you harvest during every portion of the season? Like do you do birds, then deer, then squirrels and move on and so forth, or do you just primarily do deer?
We do a little bit of everything. Wisconsin has obviously a healthy deer population. So we do deer hunt. I didn't the last year, because work was so crazy busy. Um, or a couple of years prior to that, just with the kids being so little. And I didn't really like leaving their mom alone with them like that, just because of they're very, very energetic kids. And I explained before they're very small, very young. So it's a lot to handle sometimes. But yeah, this last year we were gonna go. I didn't go because of how busy work was and how much was going on with the projects that I had. And we typically go small game hunting, which would be squirrel or a grouse, a rabbit, those kinds of animal, upland game animal or upland game birds and small um, rodents, I guess you could call them, with the squirrels. But yeah, we turkey hunt as well in the spring. We have, I think, almost every year for the last maybe 10 or 12 years. Um, we tried coyote hunting in the winter, which, like I said, we never had any luck. But we did see a lot of sign of different animals, and that's where we got the idea of turkey hunting because we saw a lot of turkey sign, and that's when we decided to start doing that. The summer, there's not really much to hunt in the summer, so we don't do it then. We love the outdoors. We love hunting. We don't do it a lot, just because of
Sure.
where our priorities are in life. Um, Now that I'm divorced, the agreement with my wife is 50-50 placement. So she has the kids 50% of the time. I have the kids 50% of the time. And now that it's set up that way, I'm finding that I have more time to go out and do the things that I like to do like that. Once I'm caught up with, the household duties and things like, mowing the lawn and all that good stuff. And that's kind of why I was able to take that trip that I met Chris. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I had some
How was
days.
that interaction?
It was different. I was on the way out of my trip, out of the lake and paddling up, and I saw these two guys standing there. And as I was paddling up, they did the fist bump, and I'm like, great, what does that mean? They're both looking at me and they do a fist bump. I'm like, is that ominous? I don't know what to think of that. So I paddled up and came in on shore, and yeah, we just kind of talked, and I told them about the site and what I had experienced and that kind of thing. They had some questions, and I found out they'd never been there. And yeah, we talked a little bit, and they mentioned they had parked up where I had parked, which was quite a distance away from where the kayak launch was, the boat launch. Because it was kind of a weird way to get back. They're real hilly, rocky, sandy. Really
Okay.
needed four-wheel drive and a vehicle with a lot of
Yeah.
clearance underneath. I have a pickup truck, so with four-wheel
Nice.
drive. So, but I didn't know how to get back there. So I really had to hike my kayak back there. And it's not a light kayak, it's a fishing kayak. It's about 100 pounds empty. And I had my pack with all my camping gear, fishing
Mhm.
rods, tackle, all that stuff. So it was a chore to get it back there. So, they were kind of asking me about information about the campsite that I was just at, but I needed information about how to get to my truck to drive it back there. So we kind of seemed like a,
Yeah.
a win-win for both of us, for Chris and Jason and myself. So, we talked a little bit more, and they had taken a different trail to get back there, but we had both ended up in kind of the same spot originally when I got there and when they got there, which was the wrong spot. Um, I knew kind of how the road went, the gravel dirt road, um, and they kind of did too. So we made our way back. We hiked back from the spot at that kayak launch. I didn't even know there was
Mhm.
a kayak launch there. Um,
Wow.
so it was an easy
Wow.
way out for me. I didn't have to portage again,
Yeah.
plus hoof my canoe. I don't know how far it was. It seemed like a
Yeah.
long distance because I had so much stuff. Um, so we all hiked back up to our vehicles, And I was like, well, I'm going to drive down there, and they've got all their stuff, and they said their car can't make it. So I was like, why don't you guys dump your stuff in my truck and I'll drive you down there.
Yeah.
So we they packed their stuff in my truck, and I drove them back there, and they unpacked all their stuff, and I loaded my kayak in, and yeah, it was cool.
Rest was history.
I talked their ears off all the way back while we hiked back to the cars. I think that's why he
Oh,
asked
yeah.
if I wanted to be on here.
Yeah, we were all talking
Yeah.
and, trying to at least get to know each other for
Yeah.
the short time that we had.
Yeah,
And I was super excited that you agreed.
yeah, it was cool.
That's so cool. And you were staying at the site that they were wanting to stay at, correct?
Yeah, that last night I was there. I arrived on that Wednesday in the afternoon, and because of the ridiculous way I went, I had a pretty good trek ahead of me. So I got to my campsite that Wednesday early evening and set up. Thursday I was there, Thursday night I was there, and Thursday morning I was there. Then I went back kind of in the direction that I came from, so I could be closer to my vehicle, so I could leave on Saturday morning. So Friday I went to the site and I stayed there. And then when I came out on Saturday morning, that's where I met them, and they wanted to go to that site. Yes. So I kind of gave them the rundown of what it was like. Nowhere to sit, but a nice fire ring and lots of firewood, which was weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they went out and I think they went up back into town and got some seats. I hadn't seen any bear, but turns out they found a giant pile of bear shit and had one growl at them from the woods while they were hiking out.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy. That was actually our welcoming,
Yeah.
our welcoming to
Holy
the
cow.
site as we heard a growl.
Yeah, I was concerned.
Because we were trying to yeah. Well, we were trying to find the trail to the boat launch, and we completely missed it. And we kept going, and we were on the north tip of the lake, whereas the boat launch is in like the southern middle portion. And so we had to backtrack all the way down. And then by the time we met with Reid, we had to have walked, I don't know. I mean, it's probably a mile and a half to the boat launch from the main road.
Yeah.
So we probably at least 4 or 5 miles before we even found what we were doing. And then
Yeah, because you guys walked back to that gate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how far I had
Yeah.
walked back, or I drove back. And trying to get my kayak, I have a little kayak cart, so I loaded everything in there, trying to get it down some of those trails. There were like little trees, saplings growing right in the middle of the trail.
Oh,
Yeah.
I dumped the kayak over and all my shit fell out of it onto the trail.
Oh,
So I was like, forget this. I put it all back in there, walked the kayak back to the truck and loaded it, and then I went back to where their car was parked too. Yeah, I was concerned about you guys, hearing that the bear had growled at you, and you didn't have like bear spray or anything. I really thought like,
I asked him too. Yeah, I was like,
What's
you have a
that?
gun, bear spray, anything.
No, I had my cute little pocket knife, and that was about it.
I
And then
was
we
gonna.
meet Reid.
What's that?
We saw you had because when we met you, you were all geared up. He had his kayak, he had his fishing vest on, he had all his gear, he had a big 45 pistol or revolver on his hip. He was like, "Oh yeah, we're set, we're good now."
Yeah, I had bear spray. I had it's a 454 revolver, which is a significant cartridge.
Yeah, that'll do some damage for sure.
Yeah, it's a good gun for defending a large wild animal. I wouldn't want to hunt them with it, but for a last resort, yeah. I had a bear bell. I was telling them when I was out at my site, I was all alone. I didn't see anybody from Wednesday until Friday morning when I went back into the big lake for my last night. I'm out there. I felt ridiculous. I'm like, go away, bear, go away. I'm clapping my hands and stuff every once in a while.
Yeah.
And by the time I went back to the bigger lake for that last night at the site they went to, I just like, why am I doing this? This is silly. There's no bears out here. But then when I came up to the boat launch and they're standing there and they told me the story, I'm like, holy shit.
Like, I'm happy I did that now.
Yeah. And we talked loudly all the way back.
Yeah.
But I was really concerned about you guys. And because where you saw the bear, it's not that far of a hike to where I was camping the first 2 nights or to where you guys were camping that second night. When I really thought about it, you would really have to just cross where that portage was and come around a little bit and it'd be on your site, and you guys had food and stuff. I had really seriously considered giving you my bear spray. and maybe asking you to give it back to me on your way back down 41 towards when you're in Oshkosh to Chicago area.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, sure.
But I was like, you know what, Reid, they're going to be fine. They're out here one night.
Yeah,
Everything will be fine.
that was a pretty quick. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
it was a quick trip.
but I still thought, I'm like, I wonder how those guys did. That's why I text you. I'm like, how'd you do?
Yeah, yeah. I should have just scared you and not answered for a couple.
Yeah. Put in parentheses,
Oh, no.
I'm dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. This is Chris's friend responding.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
that
but
was-
Jason,
yeah.
Jason does say hi.
Oh.
I told him we were doing the podcast today, so
Cool.
he was all excited.
Hi back, Jason.
So shout out to Jay. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
There you go. He'll hear this.
Yeah.
I want to ask sort
Go
of
ahead.
as we're getting closer here to the end, what's your 5-10 year trajectory look like for yourself? Like, what do you want to do with the next 5-10 years?
I want to, help my kids with school. They'll be going to public school. My daughter will be starting 5K in a year.
Nice.
I'd like to be a big part of that. I'd like to be a big part of, the activities they want to start doing. My daughter's very interested, the little gymnastics classes. And of course she wants to do ballet. My ex-wife and I have talked about it, and it sounds like we're just going to try to direct her or push her into one. Which one does she really want to do? So I'd like to get involved in that stuff. What my son wants to do too, does he want to do, kiddie league baseball or whatever? He might want to do dance too. He might even want to do ballet. I don't know. He likes doing what his sister does, which is fine. But yeah, I see myself being very involved with them. Career-wise, I have no interest in management positions. I have my MBA, but I have no interest in being management. I used to want my own company, not interested anymore. So yeah, just kind of doing the same thing I'm doing now, maybe bigger projects. I just put an offer in on a house that was accepted.
Congrats.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Big congrats.
My
We're in a
lease is
pretty
up.
hectic market.
What's that?
We're in a pretty hectic market down here in
Oh.
Illinois. I'm not sure if it's the same for you or.
Oh yeah. Wauwatosa, which is where I live. I probably shouldn't be announcing that, but yeah, it's a crazy market here. A house goes up, and within a day, it's gone.
Holy cow.
Whoa.
Yeah. I was looking pretty hard for about a month and a half, 2 months. And I had found a house I liked. It didn't go through, but yeah, it was crazy. So I found this other house. It's in a good area. It's near where the kids will be going to school. It's right near, the interstate, so I can go to work real easily and come back. I can go up and see my brother and my parents real easily, not too far of a distance. And yeah, it needs work on the outside. The inspection is on Tuesday. So hopefully we're still there, is the point of why I'm discussing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that'll be the third time I'm moving in the last year. So I would like that to be the last time for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Establish some roots.
Yeah, I'd like to still be doing these kinds of things, the outdoor stuff, the hunting, the fishing. I got to tell you, I kind of feel crazy for having did what I did when I met Chris. I'm 44 years old. I'm out of shape, and I go up into the wilderness where there's nobody. I had very little cell reception. My mom was very concerned. She's a worrywart, but yeah, she was
That
concerned.
is true.
I ended up getting this little Garmin, I think it's called InReach. It's got the SOS button on it. You can do satellite messaging
Okay.
and things like that. Because if I were to get into a
cool.
situation when I'm doing something like that, that could really be a problem by myself. So yeah, it was kind of crazy that I did that, but I would like to do something like that again.
Yeah.
And several times. So I don't know if I'm doing things like that by myself when I'm 54 or not, but we'll see. Yeah, that's kind of where I see myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
How about you guys?
That's a good question. Chris, you want to go first?
What was it? The same question?
Yeah, where do you see yourself?
Oh man, I don't know. I pretty similar to you, Reid. Honestly, I love the outdoors, and I would love to go hiking and backpacking, or camping. Just being outside more, I really enjoy. I took a backpack class in college.
Oh, nice.
It was just an extra. It was like a 3-week course, but yeah, it actually made me realize that like I miss doing that sort of stuff because I went on a couple camping trips with my stuff when I was younger, but it was just at that point it was something I had to do,
Mhm.
because I'm with my parents, so it's just like whatever, tag along. But now it's like, now that I'm an adult and independent, I can choose when to do that. And actually, the weekend after I met you, Reid, we went camping again, just my girlfriend and I,
Nice.
and yeah, it was a fun time. I look forward to doing that sort of stuff in the future.
Good.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I guess I sort of see myself keep continuing my podcast, doing this. I love interacting, meeting new people, and like just having the experience of getting to understand different personalities, understand different outlooks on the world, understand that same thing that you were sort of having with your mindfulness, where like being more conscious and aware allowed you to have a greater appreciation for your personal life and a greater appreciation for all the other things that you're doing. With this show, the more I get to meet and interact with other people, the more I become extremely grateful for having the opportunity that to even speak or have my hearing or have vision to be able to connect with other people like this.
Mhm.
So I plan on, I guess, continuing to define my own path with communication and with the ability to interact with other people like this, and then finding new jobs and careers that align with that. And so like right now I work with my brother on our businesses,
Mhm.
and that's been really, really exciting and fruitful to help people out, but also have a new opportunity for networking and leveraging the show. But then settling down and doing some of these things that we talked about, having my own family down the road.
Yeah.
There's still so much traveling that I want to do that I haven't gotten to do yet. So I think I'm thinking through my 20s, backpacking, because I think also that would bring a unique perspective to the podcast. If I'm just traveling around the world and just having random interactions and just getting to experience what it is to be a nomad for a period, that's sort of what I see in the short term. And then the long term, I guess, I weirdly lately have been fascinated with the idea of joining the FBI, like
Really?
retiring. And yes, because I like data. I love analyzing. I love making correlations and connections, and I love human interpersonal communication. So if I could take the best of both of those skills and become some type of agent or field agent or helping out with something in a country that I really believe in the principle and how it was fostered and founded, and help that mission in a way that I think is both intellectually inspiring and curious for both me, but also in a way that can help out, a greater picture. I think that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I knew a guy in college who wanted to join the FBI, and he was a criminal justice major and real stand-up guy. He had his pilot's license and everything. Um, and he, they even did a background check. They were interviewing people, his roommate, people in his life, and
Yeah, yeah.
he wasn't accepted. He didn't get accepted
Oh.
into the, the academy or whatever they call it. I don't know what he did later on. I'm not trying to discourage you. It's just, it's interesting, what people want to do and what leads them there and why they want to do it. And your reasons
Sure.
are
Yeah.
much different than his were. But I think that's really cool. It's a um, worthy service of the United States, a worthy law enforcement service. Yeah, I think they do great things. They've done some not so great things too. But, I mean,
Very accurate.
Yeah.
that's how they learn. That's how they develop policy.
Mhm.
But yeah, I believe in that agency, and I wish you the best of luck. I think that's
Thank you.
awesome. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. No one ever really switches the role
Yeah,
anymore for
exactly. It
asking
kind
Yeah.
of
us.
threw me off threw me off track for a little bit.
That's all right. I listened to your other podcast with Will. I think it was he's the outdoor.
Ah,
He's
yes.
an outdoors enthusiast,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed that podcast. But I noticed you guys didn't really talk much about yourself, so I thought I'd throw some questions back at you here real quick.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that is cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
well,
welcome.
I feel like on this note, it's a great way to end it. I wanted to ask, did I already ask if you have one piece of advice you can leave for anyone who's listening right now, whether they're young, whether they're old, whether they're in their midlife crisis, whether they're discovering what they want to do for the first time? What is
Mhm.
one piece of advice or wisdom that you would want to leave for anyone?
Um, don't give yourself up along your journey. Don't abandon who you are to get ahead or to blend in or whatever. Just don't surrender who you are for anything.
I like that.
Yeah. Me too.
That's a fantastic sentiment to wrap us up here. Reid, I thank you tremendously for your time, your wisdom, and your stories. And
You're welcome.
hopefully maybe we could run this back, or even,